Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tim and Tom's Film Nights. Tonight, we're diving into a film that has been, well, let's say it hasn't been sitting on top of my list for quite some time. Thomas, do you dare to join me in discussing Bring It On? All or Nothing?
Oh, Timothy, dearest, I wouldn't miss this opportunity for the world, or at least not for anything involving cheerleaders and a sequel number higher than 2. So, what did you think of this one? Was it a slam dunk, or more like a faceplant into mediocrity?
Well, Tom, dear fellow, I must say that I found myself quite underwhelmed by the whole affair. The plot was thin and predictable. The humor was more cringy than laugh-worthy. And the performances were, well, they were there, I suppose. In my humble opinion, this film barely earned a score of 2 out of 10 stars. But perhaps I'm being too harsh. What did you think?
Well, Timothy, dearest, I must say that you and I are going to have quite the disagreement today. While I'm not a huge fan myself, I found Bring It On, All or Nothing, to be a rather enjoyable addition to the franchise. Sure, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does what a good sequel should do. Provide fans with more of what they love, and in this case, that happens to be some highly entertaining cheerleading competitions. Now, let's talk about the plot for a moment, shall we? The story revolves around 2 rival high school cheerleading teams who decide to combine their squads to form one unstoppable force. But of course, there's always a twist. The new team captain, played by Hayden Panettiere, discovers that some members of her team are actually sabotaging their own chances at victory. As the competition draws closer, she must not only uncover the culprit, but also learn valuable life lessons along the way. And, who doesn't love a good, predictable cheerleading movie with a dash of teenage angst and a sprinkle of friendship? I know I certainly do. So, Timothy, dearest, what do you say? Are you ready to step back into the world of pom-poms, sequins, and perfectly choreographed routines?
Well, Thomas, dear fellow, I must say that while I appreciate your enthusiasm for these cheerleading films, as you insist on calling them, I simply cannot muster up the same level of excitement. However, since we are discussing Bring It On, All or Nothing, there are some interesting trivia tidbits I can share with our viewers. For instance, did you know that the film's stunt coordinator, James A. King, also served in a similar capacity for the popular TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer? And speaking of Buffy, Hayden Panettiere, who plays the role of the determined new team captain, went on to star alongside her fellow vampire slayer, Sarah Michelle Gellar, in the horror flick I Know What You Did Last Summer. Coincidence? Perhaps not.
Oh, Tim, dearest, you do love your little trivia nuggets, don't you? Well, let me return the favor by sharing some interesting tidbits of my own. For example, did you know that the movie was filmed at the same high school where the original Beverly Hills 90,210-inch and Saved by the Bell, the college years, was shot? That's right, folks. Bring it on. All or Nothing has some serious TV to film and back credentials. And speaking of credits, did you know that the film's soundtrack features a song called This Is Me by the American rock band, the B-52S? Yes. Dear viewers, we have ourselves a true cinematic treasure trove on our hands. Now, Timothy, dearest, care to add anything else before we wrap up this segment and move on to discussing the film's visual direction?
Well, Tom, dear fellow, I must say that I find your fascination with the film's production history quite interesting. However, as a proper film critic, I feel compelled to address the one thing that truly left me unimpressed by Bring It On. All or Nothing, the visual direction. While some may argue that the movie was intended to be lighthearted entertainment, I must insist on holding it to a higher standard. The camera work felt cheap and amateurish, with choppy editing and a lack of creative framing. The costume design was nothing short of appalling, with some outfits resembling something more appropriate for a Halloween party at your local community center rather than a high school cheerleading competition. And don't even get me started on the makeup. Some of those cheerleaders looked like they had just woken up from a 3-day bender. So, Thomas Dearfellow, what are your thoughts on the film's visual presentation?
Well, Timothy dearest, I must say that while we've certainly had our fair share of disagreements regarding Bring It On, All or Nothing, I can't help but appreciate your passion for the art of filmmaking. While I myself am no expert in cinematography or costume design, I did find the movie to be visually appealing. The colorful uniforms and sparkling sequins were a feast for the eyes, and the cheerleading routines themselves were well choreographed and entertaining to watch. As for the camera work, while it may not have been as polished as some Hollywood blockbusters, it did serve its purpose in capturing the energy and excitement of the competitions. But let's not dwell on the negatives too much. Let's instead shift our focus to something that we both can agree on: the talented cast members who brought these characters to life. Thomas, do you think we could talk a bit about the actors and their portrayals of their respective roles?
Oh, certainly, Tom dearest. I think it's important to highlight the talent that went into making this film what it is. Let's start with Hayden Panettiere, who plays the role of the determined new team captain Morgan. She brings a certain sense of vulnerability and determination to the character, which makes her relatable and likable, despite her occasional bouts of teenage angst. Solange Knowles-Smith, playing the role of rival captain Isis, also delivers a solid performance. While she starts off as a stereotypical mean girl trope, she gradually evolves throughout the film, revealing layers of complexity and vulnerability that make her more than just a one-dimensional villain. The chemistry on screen is tangible, adding a much-needed layer of tension and drama to the otherwise predictable plot points. And let's not forget about the rest of the talented cast, including the supportive coach played by the ever-charming Marguerite Moreau, who brings a sense of warmth and wisdom to the story. And who could forget the comedic relief provided by the team's lovable nerd, played by the hilarious Randy Wayne. Each actor and actress brought their prime game to the table, elevating what could have been just another mediocre teen movie into a slightly more enjoyable 90 minutes of mindless entertainment. So, Thomas Dearfellow, do you agree with my assessment of the cast's performance?
Oh, Timothy dearest, I couldn't agree with you more about the cast's performance in Bring It On, All or Nothing. They truly brought their prime game to this film and elevated it above its mediocre script. Let's talk about some of the standout performances that really made an impact on me as a viewer. One such performance was by Gabrielle Dennis, who played Jasmine, one of the original members of Morgan's team. She had to navigate through some complex emotional waters in this film, and I thought she did an excellent job portraying a character caught between loyalty to her friends and doing what's right. Her chemistry with Hayden Panettiere was palpable, adding depth to their on-screen relationship. Another performance that stood out to me was by Jordan Rodriguez as Eddie Winslow, Morgan's love interest in the film. He brought a sense of warmth and vulnerability to his character that made him relatable and likable, despite being a bit of a nerdy outcast. The scene where he confesses his feelings for Morgan was truly heartwarming, thanks in large part to Rodriguez's performance. Now let's talk about the film's villain, played by Carmen Electra. While her character wasn't as nuanced or complex as some of the other roles in the film, she certainly made an impression with her fierce attitude and sultry demeanor. Her rivalry with Morgan added a much-needed layer of tension to the story, and I have to admit that I found myself rooting for her character at times. Lastly, let's talk about the film's portrayal of friendship. I thought the bond between Morgan, Jasmine, and their fellow cheerleaders, was truly touching. They supported each other through thick and thin, which is something we don't see enough in modern films. This aspect of the story made the characters more relatable and likable, even when they were being a bit petty or selfish. So, Timothy Dearfellow, what are your thoughts on the cast performances in Bring It On, All or Nothing? Any standout moments or actors that particularly impressed you?
Well, Tom dearest, it's quite evident that we've both had quite a bit to say about Bring It On, All or nothing.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
But let's not dwell on the negatives too much.
Let's shift our focus to some of the films and TV series that were influenced by this movie franchise. There's no denying that Bring It On's mix of high-octane cheerleading competitions, teen drama, and sprinkles of comedy has left a lasting impact on pop culture. One such example is the hit series Glee, which ran from 2009 to 2015. While it focused more on choir competition rather than cheerleading, it borrowed heavily from Bring It On's formula of underdog stories, rivalries, and even included a few cheerleader-themed episodes that paid homage to the franchise. The show's popularity also sparked a renewed interest in high school musicals, leading to films like High School Musical and its Disney Channel predecessor, Camp Rock. Another notable influence is the 2017 Netflix series Cheer, which follows the lives of competitive cheerleaders from Navarro College in Texas. While it's a documentary series rather than scripted fiction, it captures the intensity and camaraderie between team members that Bring It On so masterfully portray. The show's success even led to the spin-off series Cheerleading Coach's Couch, which delved deeper into the world of competitive cheerleading from the perspective of the coaches themselves. Lastly, we can't forget about the numerous films and TV shows that have directly or indirectly borrowed elements from Bring It On. Films like Bring It On, All In, and its sequels continue the franchise's legacy of cheer-driven comedy, while shows like Cheer Squad, though short-lived, featured a group of misfit high school cheerleaders who must learn to work together to win their first ever cheerleading competition. So, Thomas, dear fellow, do you think we've covered enough about the influence Bring It On, All or Nothing, had on pop culture? Are there any other films or TV shows that you think were inspired by this franchise?
Well, Timothy dearest, we've certainly talked the proverbial leg off of a donkey about Bring It On. All or Nothing. While it may not be a cinematic masterpiece, it does have its moments of campy fun and cheesy humor that make it a guilty pleasure for many. The film's focus on friendship, teamwork, and personal growth is commendable, even if it's wrapped in the glittery bow of an over-the-top cheerleading competition. As for the performances, while some characters felt more fleshed out than others, the cast does deliver solid performances, especially Hayden Panettiere as the determined new team Captain Morgan. She brings a mix of vulnerability and determination to her character. That makes her relatable despite her occasional teenage angst. Solange Knowles-Smith also deserves credit for her portrayal of the rival captain, Isis, who starts off as a stereotypical mean girl but evolves throughout the film, revealing layers of complexity and vulnerability. In conclusion, Bring It On, All or Nothing isn't going to win any Academy Awards, but it does provide mindless entertainment for those seeking an escape from reality. If you're a fan of teen movies, cheerleading competitions, and the occasional witty banter between two old British men, then this film might be right up your uniform skirt. So, dear viewers, please do leave us a comment, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit that little like button below. Until next time, farewell, and remember, KISSISSING is twice as nice.